movement is medicine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It truly is. I'd actually say it's more important. I'd
Okay.
fight you on that and
Oh,
say
all
it's
right.
more important
Pushback.
because
Yeah.
you cannot have quantity without quality.
Welcome to Happy and Healthy with Amy, the brain health podcast for women in midlife who want to not just survive, but actually thrive during the menopause transition and beyond. I'm Amy Lang, master health coach, best-selling author, and daughter of Alzheimer's, and I'm here to help you make this next chapter of your life the best one yet. Well, hi there, Amy here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome back to another episode of the Happy and Healthy with Amy podcast. So last month was pretty much dedicated to nutrition, which is one of the 8 factors in the restored protocol for brain health. March, this month, is going to be dedicated to movement and exercise. And I am so excited about today's episode because I get to bring back one of my all-time favorite guests, Marian Barnick, who is a registered kinesiologist and movement therapist with 30 years of experience. So it's been a few years since she was last on the podcast. It was episode 114, which I'll link to in the show notes, okay, if you haven't seen it. So since then, as you probably know, my entire focus has shifted to brain health, to protecting women's brains during the menopause transition. So I wanted to revisit movement with Marian through that lens, right? What changes occur? What challenges you may be facing and what you want to prioritize. So this is part 1 of Move for Your Brain. Let's get started. It is so good to have you back on the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I think to start off with, can you just help people understand the difference between being a physical therapist and a kinesiologist and I don't know, all the other different kinds of folks that might be involved in joints and movement and things like that?
Absolutely. And if I had $1 for every time I was asked, kinesi what? The kinesiologist, the scientific study of movement. So Greek word, obviously. So my area of study and what I've done for over 30 years now is look at the biomechanics of movement, look at how the body is moving. And instead of working with someone who may have an injury that may need icing, may need stretching, may need recovery time, we're looking at it more proactively. And yes, people may have injuries and we work with them, but proactively is to get the body to move in the best way it can with the best body alignment that we should be working with. So that's my focus, is the body alignment piece of things. So if we have problems where we've had an injury, we've had a car accident, we've had surgeries, and there's problems with things, we want to make sure that our body gets back to how it moved when we were 5 and 6 and 10 and 15, and we could run without pain and we could get up in the morning and bounce out of bed. That's the body alignment we want. And that's what we want to get back to. So we don't have those aches and pains and we don't have the limitations in our daily activities and our sports endeavors.
So how did you decide to become a kinesiologist? What inspired you?
It is so simple. I ran track in high school. My knees hurt. I went to many different people, many different doctors, many different hospitals to see what was exactly wrong with my knees because I was not going to give up running. And I went to this really interesting little clinic, and the girl who helped me out was a kinesiologist. And I learned all about kinesiology. And there was a wonderful school in Canada that I went to, University of Waterloo. Great professors there, and just fell in love with the science-based protocols of movement, where it was based on research, it was based on science. It wasn't how would I say it? It's not something where you say, oh, this is my idea and this is how I think about it. This is how it is. This is how your body moves. This is how the muscles move. This is how your joints will react when you do things. And it certainly served me well when I ended up in a car accident
Mm.
and ended up having trouble and movement problems, and I needed surgery on a shoulder. And I thought, great, I will have my surgery. It'll make my shoulder better because you have a surgery and it makes you better. And I had my surgery and I wasn't better.
Hmm.
I'm like, wait a minute. The surgery was supposed to make me better. Okay, rehab. Okay, I'll work a little rehab. That'll make me better. Wasn't making me better. It was putting all the pieces together in that biomechanical model that truly took me out of where I would have been stuck. Like I really would have been stuck and saying, okay, my shoulder can move. I've got some range of motion, but I can't do my weights. I can't do chest press anymore because I can't get that shoulder angled when my back is flat, when my neck is neutral, and all of those biomechanical pieces had to come together for me to see that my alignment was still off. Things weren't processing properly from my brain to my muscles, from my muscles back to my brain. It wasn't working the way I wanted it to work. And disappointing at first, for sure, because I ended up with 5 shoulder surgeries. So I had to rehab after each one. Yeah, it was a long journey. Yeah, me and surgery are old friends, but it taught me that you can't go into surgery thinking you'll be fixed. You can't go to rehab thinking you'll be fixed when you get your range of motion back.
Mm.
There's so much more to it, and it's getting your body back into alignment where all your pieces function properly together. And that's what I became so passionate about, is watching movement, watching how people move and saying, aha, I see something. That's not in alignment. I wonder if that's causing a problem. And being a little outgoing, I don't mind coming up. Oops, yeah, the cat's out of the bag now. I'll be in Whole Foods and I'll see someone, rubbing their knee or something, and I'll say, hey, you've got some knee pain. Do you think it has anything to do with your imbalance in your hips? And they're like, what? Like, you stand on one leg and your hip is hiked on this side, and it looks like you got some tightness through that low back. It's it's like light bulb goes off for someone. They had no idea in how all the pieces fit together. And that's what kinesiology is the biomechanics of movement, breaking it down and then building it back up properly. And I I love it.
Well, I think you of all people, like when I want March to be all about movement. So you were the first person that I thought of. When
Yay!
yeah. So actually, let's talk about the importance of movement,
Oh
right?
my
Like
gosh.
in terms of like people say food is medicine, exercise is medicine. Um,
Movement is medicine.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It truly is. And uh, when you think about it, and most people think about, oh, movement is medicine because I need to heal. I've had an injury, and if I move more, I'm going to heal better. But you've got to look at other concepts as well. It's great for that. But your emotional well-being, retraining your brain when you have compensations, when you have bad habits, that have been created in your body because of surgeries or car accidents. You're retraining your brain with the movement. It encompasses so much that it's not just orthopedics, it's aging as well. So as you get older, that movement keeps you young in so many facets. So it really is medicine.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of like mental health, there's there's lots of research that shows even moderate levels of exercise are better at handling like mild depression than a lot of medications are too, right? So it's emotional health, mental health, physical health, all of those things. So especially I think during the menopause transition when your body is just going through so much, how important it is.
Yes.
We're the same age, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, like you just it's so important to just when you talk about like wanting to feel like yourself, right? That's a big part of it. So when we talk about the menopause transition, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, when we talk about hormonal shifts as they
Mhm.
relate to movement, what are some of the things that you've seen come up for folks?
There's a lot of changes, both physically and mentally, emotionally, that happen. And I think, first of all, we realize that maybe we're not quite as in control of our bodies as we thought we were. and there's some changes going on that we weren't quite aware of and we're not quite sure what's happening. And that unknown can be scary. Absolutely. When you're so used to being so strong and so independent. And all of a sudden it's like, A, my clothes aren't fitting the same way. And B, I'm tired all the time. And C, I feel weaker. And all of those things, when they start adding up, you, I can't say you should, but you how do I want to say this politely? I don't know. You really need to take charge. You really do need to take charge if you don't want to fall down that rabbit hole. And that's with your physical health, your mental health, your brain health. All of those things are so important. And you do need to get that exercise in. It's so I know it's part of your protocol.
Yeah.
It's part of my life in that exercise parameters is getting into that ability to exercise properly. You need to have the strength in your body to be able to live independently. You want those components when you talk about cardiovascular, you talk about flexibility, when you talk about strength components,
Yeah.
all of those make up great exercise where that movement is medicine and you're solving it with your ability to go outside and exercise, go to the gym and exercise, do your fitness activities. If someone's prescribed a certain activity for you because of diagnoses that you may have, all of that is going to keep those hormonal changes at bay and under control, and also more control of your body and the changes that are going through. We become weaker when we go through menopause. We lose our muscle strength as we go through those hormonal changes. And it's so important to keep that up. Our cardio health is so important to keep that up. If we are putting on weight, and that may happen, we want to make sure that we exercise in that parameter as well.
Yeah. Well, so I'll help you with the whole not using the word should. Maybe if we think about it in terms of, you hear this from doctors all the time. My sister says this all the time, that women in the family, the moms, are the ones that are making sure everybody else goes and sees the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And prioritizes their health. And I think this is just a reminder to prioritize your own health as well. And so if you see something going on, to actually take care of it. And if you don't know how to take care of it, start asking questions. Become
Oh,
resourceful. Yeah.
absolutely. There's no I think sometimes women really feel shame about things that are going on. Oh, it's my fault I've gained 5 pounds, or my fault I can't sleep, or my fault that I should be getting stronger with things. But those shoulds are not going to help you solve that problem.
Yeah.
So definitely reach out for help and definitely um, listen to podcasts, figure out what's going on,
Be
and
resourceful. Yes. Yes.
be resourceful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, when we talk about movement, so you talked about cardio. So, cardio obviously helps to do things like improve our blood flow, right?
Yeah.
Um, I would say when you look at exercise, you get to a certain intensity level that will trigger the release of BDNF, so brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is really like they talk about it as miracle grow for your brain. So this helps your brain form new neural connections. So I always tell folks, like, if you have kids who are struggling with a particular subject in school, or if you yourself are about to go and learn something new, if you get a little bout of exercise in beforehand and trigger that release of BDNF, it can help with the learning process, with the memory and learning process. So
And the memory part is so important too through the menopause, where people say that there's, word searching abilities or forgetting where they put things. So the exercise component of that with what you're talking about, vital.
yeah, yeah. So also with the hormonal changes, like our insulin resistance tends to go up, right? So that pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that's what we're talking about here. And when you exercise, especially if you include strength training in there, right? That actually helps with, well, like muscles, that those are using all that blood sugar in your bloodstream, right? So
But your glycogen, that's the stored glycogen, is being utilized, and then you have to take the sugar out of your bloodstream and rebuild the glycogen in those muscles. And that reaction and that using of that is so important for energy, so important for building the strength, and so important for, as you said, keeping the system healthy with the blood sugars.
yeah. So it actually helps with insulin sensitivity. So if you're
Yes.
right, if you're struggling with insulin resistance, this is where it can really help. So exercise beyond that, I like to think about exercise in terms of not just physical health, right? We were talking earlier about how it's so good for your emotional health and your mental health as well. So it runs the gamut, right? In terms
Oh, it
of
absolutely does. You tell me a person who's gone to the gym and says, I feel worse after going to the gym. No, you always feel better after going to the gym. If someone can drag your butt to the gym, you do your workout, you're in the car on the way home, and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I went.
yeah,
That's that emotional benefit of exercise. That's feeling so much better about yourself and taking action about getting your body moving.
yeah, yeah. Taking care of yourself. There's like a being in integrity. If you told yourself you were going to do something and then you see yourself do it, that makes a big difference too, right? So in my restored protocol, so this is the 8 essential protective factors for brain health, right? Exercising daily is one of them. And you just talked about it earlier. I always say cardio, strength training, and balance. So, or flexibility. Like, we really want to make sure that balance is so important for fall prevention as one thing, right? And then just movement, generally speaking. So, I think that's a great actually lead in into your foundations first. So, do you want to maybe get into what those elements are?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's important so people understand when they're getting into an exercise protocol, when they're trying to do better and be better and feel better, that they're not knocked off with pain. They're not knocked off with an injury that's going to stop them from actually pursuing their goals and doing what they really should do. So when you end up going to the gym or you're going out for a walk or a local park that's got some equipment for you to use, you want to make sure you're set up properly. And that is what Foundations First Framework is about, is making sure you've got good range of motion in your joints. And that's that mobility that I talk about, flexibility that you said is part of your exercise protocol within Restored. The flexibility is so important because if you ultimately want to get to strength training, you need to make sure that your joints can move those muscles. So if those joints are tight and they're not moving properly, you're not going to move the muscles properly. So all that extra work that you're putting in to try and build strength, you're only going to get a percentage out of it being the percentage that you can move that joint. So if I'm talking about wanting to train my shoulder, but I can only lift my shoulder up to 45 degrees, so I'll strength train there, well, what happens to that rest of that
Mm-hmm.
area where my shoulder should be moving? I can't strength train it because I don't have mobility there. So mobility always comes first. So you need to check your mobility. So if you're doing lower body workouts, if you're trying to build your quad strength, because I know we've talked about that and how important that is for brain health, you need to look at your mobility in your ankles, your mobility in your knee, your mobility in your hips. And then you need to look, as you said, the balance, your ability to stabilize your body. Can you stand on one foot? If not, then we need to work on motor control. We need to work on what small muscles within the hips need to work as stabilizers first. And there's so many exercises for that before you get into your strength training. So if you take a course where you think it might be a little slower, it's going to be safer and it's going to have way better long-term effects in reaching your goal.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm hearing you say is the quality of the movement is just as important as the quantity, if you will.
I'd actually say it's more important. I'd
Okay.
fight you on that and
Oh,
say it's
oh,
more important
pushback.
because
Yeah.
you cannot have quantity without quality. So when you look at, talking about the Olympics and you look at those athletes that make everything look so easy, like you see the quad god doing his
Yeah.
his quad and you're like, well, that looks pretty easy. Just spin in the air 4 times. that's because the quality of movement is there when he did his first, single axle, double axle, triple axle. When he's doing all of those moves, he had to have great biomechanics and great body alignment to be able to go from his first one to his second, to add the third, to add to the quad. He couldn't just go to the quad. So that quality had to be there in order to get to where he wanted to be. So you start even the quality of walking. We don't tell someone to go on a running program if they can't walk properly.
Hmm.
So you've got to start with that walking first before you go to running. So that quality is there. Same thing with your weight training. If your shoulders aren't moving well, if your knees aren't moving well, if your ankles aren't moving well, you want that quality of movement in your joints first before you start doing your lunges, start doing your squats. That's what is really, truly important.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. No, I think about almost like there's the midpoint where we're talking here about like if you had all the mobility and stability, and then we're talking about strength training and having proper form to get the most
Yes,
out of it. But then sort of so if here's the midpoint and you're not experiencing pain and you don't have compensations, you're on this side of it, the right side. For me, the right side. I guess if you're watching this, it's this way. um, but on the other side of it would be like if you're experiencing pain, if you've had injury, then now we're talking about compensations where your body has automatically done some things, correct, to compensate.
absolutely. And the pain is a symptom. It's telling you it's a warning symbol. It's signal. So it's like the on your dashboard in your car and you've got a check engine light. I mean, you can certainly put a piece of paper over that, not look at the check engine light and continue to drive your car. But at some point your car's going to break down. And that's the same thing with your body. It's a signal. So it could be knee pain, it could be hip pain, could be shoulder pain, but it's a symptom. It's not the root cause of the problem. You've got to get to the root cause. You've got to break it down. So I have something called the kinetic stacking method, and that's breaking everything down to the root cause to find out what's caused the problem. Because my knees may hurt because I have an ankle problem. I have decreased range of motion and plantar flexion in my ankle. So my knee has to compensate. It's got to move more. Or my angle, my biomechanics have changed and it's putting more pressure on my knees. So the symptom is knee pain. But the root cause is that ankle mobility. So we really do need to break it down into those components to see where it's at. But if you have pain, you've got to take care of that pain before you can ever level up.
Okay, so here's what I want you to take away from this episode. Movement is medicine, not just for your joints and your cardiovascular health, but for your brain. It boosts BDNF, it improves insulin sensitivity, and it supports your mood and your memory. And during the menopause transition, when so many systems in our bodies are in flux, it is one of the most powerful tools you have. But here's the thing Marian said that really struck me, right? I suggested that the quality of movement might be just as important as the quantity. And she pushed back. She said, I'll fight you on that, right? Quality is more important. You cannot have quantity without quality. And that is exactly what we're going to dig into in part 2. Because here's what most of us don't realize. Your body may be moving every day, but if it's been running compensated patterns from old injuries, from surgery, from years of sitting at a desk, you aren't getting the full benefit. And your brain, it might be paying the price. Okay, so in part 2, Marin's going to walk us through how those compensations get locked in, how to start seeing them, and then what it actually takes to retrain your brain. So this is a conversation that I think is going to change how you think about approaching exercise. All right, so the link to part 2 is in the show notes. All right, I'll see you in part 2. Hi there. Would you please do me a quick favor? If you're a woman in midlife who wants to protect her brain, especially if you have a family history of Alzheimer's, please subscribe, right? This channel is for you. And I post every week. So not only do I not want you to miss my next episode, as the channel grows, I'll be able to access harder to book guests who have really valuable insights and wisdom that I think are best learned directly from the source. Right? And if this episode resonated with you, please be sure to like and share and watch this episode next.